Welcome and good afternoon to all of you. We have a great panel here of CIOs from the area, but before we introduce them, I'd like to just talk a bit about the topic. IT services in the untethered environment. As an IT services company, we provide strategy, consulting, and outsourcing, but we're not here to talk about us. But in that business and in that industry, which I know a number of you out in the audience are in, we invest an awful lot in skills and services and capabilities to find ways to help our clients embrace their needs in the untethered environment. And what we're looking to do in this panel is get an understanding of how and why CIOs buy IT services and what they value in those services. We're going to break the questions into two general groups. We're going to talk first about innovation and how to leverage the IT services community to drive innovation within their organizations. How do we take them to the edge and the forefront of technology? And then we're going to talk on the second part about value. How do we measure value and how do we make sure that the services they're buying are delivering the value and the ROI to meet their needs. Then we'll turn it over to the audience for some general Q&A, so please do have your questions ready. Most of my questions up here will be easy, and the panelists have seen those, so we're expecting the tough questions from the audience, so please don't be shy. You have a great panel up here and a great opportunity to ask them some questions. So with that, we're going to start with some introductions. I'm going to start at the end with Ina, and we'd like to hear a bit about yourself, your role, and what's your biggest challenge in meeting the demands of the untethered environment at Thermo Fisher.
Sure, thanks, Barry. So I'm Ina Kamins. I'm the Global CIO for Thermo Fisher Scientific, about a $12 billion operation and the world leader in serving science. Our biggest challenge is meeting our innovation opportunities that we have to grow and build our business globally while running a 24/7 operation of a very diverse organization that grew through 200 acquisitions over the past 10 years. So that's what we have to balance.
Great. And John?
I'm John Heverin, CIO of Liberty Mutual Agency Corporation, which is about a $12 billion property and casualty provider that sells and distributes to the independent agent channel, personal, commercial, and surety products. For me, I think the biggest challenge is around bringing together, like Ina said, we are a division that's built up through acquisition, and bringing all of that together while also realizing the kind of the benefits of the untethered environment, but bringing all that consolidation together effectively and quickly.
Bill.
Thanks. I'm Bill Brown, CIO at Avid Technology. We're a local Burlington-based company that creates solutions for capturing and manipulating digital media. I'd say our biggest challenge around the untethered exercise is, in my terms, I think it finally legalized the CIO end around. And our service providers now really have license to work with our end users in terms of rapidly enabling solutions. And I think the challenge for IT is to figure out ways to embrace that in such a way that you have enabling technology, but at the same time maintain some consistency around architectural standards. So that's our big challenge.
Great. And Rich.
Hi, I'm Rich Aducci, CIO at Boston Scientific. We're a global $8 billion company that makes medical devices. In terms of challenges, I think I would surface two. First of all, we've been a pioneer in the space of untethered world. We've had an iPad program that's as old as iPads themselves have been on the market. And I think as a pioneer in that space, in the untethered world, we've had to discover through the school of hard knocks a lot of the things that really don't still exist in this space. Getting beyond just mobile email and getting to real enterprise relevance around a mobile enterprise solution suite is not as easy as it sounds it should be, because it's a lot more difficult than just virtualizing. So that's one. The second one, which I both have, is there's tremendous, profound change going on in the healthcare space right now, everywhere around the world, well beyond just Obamacare. The healthcare world is changing by the second, and so as an IT professional, I have a unique opportunity to be a player in that space, to really help bring together various pieces of the puzzle and to help deliver a different set of values, to be part of the revenue equation, indeed, and move away from just a cost center. So a lot of exciting opportunities for, I think, all of us in this space.
Great. Thank you. We're going to start with a simple and straightforward question, and I will pick the first panelist to answer each question, but you are all welcome to jump in, let them finish their answer, or just jump in right on top of them. So we ought to feel to mix it up a bit as needed. But the first question, I'll start with Rich right here, who took the hot seat, is where do you turn for innovation and why?
It's a really good question. I think I'll tell you two places that we turn. First of all, we turn to our organization. So we drove, 2 years ago, we changed our mission as an IS organization globally to be one that's centering around innovation. And we did a lot of looking around at who's good at innovation and how do they approach innovation. And we concluded there were really two schools of thought. One is you create a think tank that kind of looks and does a lot of research and does innovation. And the other one is innovations for everyone. And it's kind of the IBM versus sort of the 3M models that you could look at. And we chose really the 3M model. We said really everybody can be an innovator. We want everyone's best ideas. And we want everybody in our organization in IT to understand a core part of your job is to be an innovator. And that's really allowed us to unleash a lot of great new ideas and drive a lot of new value for our business. The second place we really go to is really getting dirty, getting out there with our business customers, with our customers themselves, really getting in the middle of the business and understanding where the value lies. And as you get closer to what's going on, closer to the action, you learn a lot and you see a lot of opportunity that you can't really see from your office.
Right. Anyone else?
We turn to the customers. Their hands feed us. It's important to hear what they're looking for. We've just recently done a series of, we call them the go-to-market customer experience pilots, where we really want to look at different ways to go to market, and we don't want to look at it from our side out. We want to look at their side in, and that's really helped drive some innovative thoughts about how we go to market. Then we also look for the hands that do all the work at our mid-level managers and our real strong worker bees, not just in IT, but across the company. They know the pain points. And we look for all those issues where we're redoing, revalidating, returning, all the rework that we have to do to find ways to improve that efficiency so we can take money out of our operation and put it back into our innovation at the front end.
Right.
I'd just add, I think our front-end salespeople and those that face the customer, I think, is a lot where we look for innovation. I mean, a lot of times they're the ones that actually have the difficult problems around making sure that they interact with customers and provide a face for our solutions in the proper manner. And I think a lot of times there's a lot can be born out of that because, again, they're there real time, they're interacting with the customers, and I think there's a lot of data there in terms of how you can be innovative.
Great.
Yeah, I would just add, I think, similar looking at frontline employees and for us, our independent agent, but also about trying to lower the barriers of trying things out. And so we had an employee working with someone that manages our field organization come up with an idea and giving them a little bit of time and money and trying some things out. We've tried some things, some technologies and tools that have failed, and we've tried some ones that have worked. And the part of the message that I've had for the team is even the ones that fail, it's okay, right? Because as long as we're learning something about those, and in this case, it was the early days of mobile and this concept of build it once, deploy it on multiple platforms. And it was, the market continues to progress and mature, but at that time, about a year and a half ago, it was a little too early, but I was glad that we tried.
I think that's a really good point. I think one of the things with innovation that's super important is being able to encourage people to take risks. We changed a little bit of how we evaluate people in our organization to really look for and reward people that are taking risks even when they don't work out all the time. So often in IT, we get so centric on date, schedule, milestone, budget, requirements, kind of very linear, and innovation isn't really linear. You have to accommodate for that and really find ways to reward that.
That's a big struggle, and I know in our organization we provide little or no time. We talk about innovation, but to really walk the walk and provide people an environment and the ability to take a risk and allocate significant parts of their time to innovation is very difficult to do.
Yeah. So I'm hurt. That first round of answers with the hand-chosen panel, not one of them said they depend on their IT strategy consultant to come in and help them understand innovation in the marketplace. But which leads to the second question. Do you consider yourself early adopters of innovative technologies, and how well do your current IT service providers, how well have they been able to support your needs in this area? And we'll start with Bill.
Yeah, so I think we have an interest in being early adopters. I don't think that we deliver on that as much as I'd like. I do find that our IT service providers are an avenue of innovation. I think it works best when we can narrowly focus them in some areas that our customers are telling us they want some innovation, as well as making sure that we're open-minded for listening to ideas that maybe we're outside of our sphere of thinking, that they might be able to leverage from other customer experiences as well.
Great.
Yeah, I'd say I would probably put us in the, say, top 25% of fast followers. We're not always out there on the bleeding edge, but try and take some chances. I would say also that from our partners, I'd say on general it's pretty good, but sometimes it's a bit of hit and miss. I mean, sometimes partners are trying to, they have a solution that they've shown that works in other places, and it's about, finding the hole in which that screw will fit, and that's not necessarily always the right answer, but we try and look for what can we learn out of that. In other cases, we've got partners that are good about being very open and creative and trying and experimenting with us.
Okay. So do you encourage them to take the risks with you?
We do, and some are more able, frankly, some are more able to do that than others.
Okay, great.
You're, of course, among the leading providers in that case.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Again, it's not about me, right? So, which is fine. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I'll just say it becomes especially frustrating when you have a partner that you want to count on that won't take that risk, either a risk of resources that they can expend, and it's very, very frustrating when that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I think for us at Boston Scientific, we pride ourselves on being very innovative. We have more patents than any other company on the planet around medical devices. We are very, very leading edge with our therapies, and when I look at our IS organization, we've really driven a very innovative agenda. But that doesn't mean living on the bleeding edge everywhere. It means picking your battles, finding where there's value, and really going after that. And I think consumerization of IT kind of forces all of us as CIOs to recognize that if we don't lean into the wind and be innovative, folks will come in with those devices or with those needs or through the cloud with those capabilities. And so you might as well jump in the pool and steer that versus spending all the time being Dr. No. I think in terms of how good are service providers at innovation, I think at the very, very high concept level, I found them to be pretty good. They bring great ideas to the table. Where I found that they're not very good is at executing on innovative ideas, because oftentimes for the major service providers we work with, they depend on scale of demand, and typically in the innovative spaces there isn't a lot of scale, so they don't have skills, and the willingness to take risks on the service side is usually very, very poor. So what happens is I find oftentimes beyond sort of the PowerPoint presentation conference room time, when we have to actually go do something, I'm oftentimes going to other providers who are more innovative, more willing to take risks, and more able to bring delivery of results in those bleeding edge areas.
Barry, we put at Thermo Fisher Scientific our innovation focus in serving our customers. So whether it's in our diagnostic space or our instruments or equipment, the demo centers that we build all around the world for scientists to come to learn how to use our products and services, that is where we put our money in terms of innovation. In the IT space, we are not early adopters. We are not fast followers. We are steady Eddie. When it's time to happen and it's going to drive something, we will. And we do rely on our service providers to help us with that, because we might not have rolled something out like that, or we might not know all the details, and we need to buy the knowledge and the service from somewhere else. Okay. Where it's interesting for us with mobility is those two worlds are coming more and more together. Mobility is driving, not only enabling our employees to go out and our customers to come in, but also through mobility enabling our instruments and equipment to do a lot more and to be more connected in the untethered world. That's where we're going to see a lot of innovation.
Great. Next question. I was at a client a month or two ago at one of their annual events, and they started a process where they brought their top, in this case it was their top 15 IT service providers. It was consulting, hardware, software. They brought them all together for a day. They had the business leadership, the IT leadership, and I don't remember the exact name, but they went over their top 10 or 12 really hard problems to solve. And then they turned on a platform, which in this case, I think it was Spigot was the platform. They said, you're all going to innovate together. You're all going to collaborate. Our fiercest competitors, right? We're going to get on this environment and share our best ideas and thinking collaboratively, right? And not collusively, but collaboratively, right? With around how to help solve our clients' problems. Have any of you tried getting your hardware, software, and service providers to be more collaborative? And any successes that anyone can share on that? I'll open that up to anybody.
Yeah, we do that often, and I think now more than ever in our space, in the healthcare space, we're going to do a lot more of that. I don't know that I would necessarily pick my top 10 or 15 folks and put them into a room, because that might be like putting a bunch of cats in a bag and shaking it up. You know, yeah. Might not work out too well. But I think that looking strategically at what problems you're trying to solve and bringing together networks of suppliers, it's one of the things IT people are really, really good at, and it's probably a capability we do a poor job as professionals levering for our businesses. And I think that's one of the things in a lot of industries we're having to move quicker at. I also think the wheel of innovation is moving much, much faster than it ever has. It's only going to get faster, and if you think you can do it on your own, well, you won't. So you've got to get good at stitching those things together.
Anyone else want to comment on that one?
We did a session actually last year in which we brought all of our service providers, both hardware and software and services providers, together, and it was it was kind of an annual vendor partner forum type of thing. But we had done 4 discrete scenarios, kind of visioning what we thought maybe the future could hold that would be compelling for our business partners. And it was part of a broader effort that we were doing with our business folks. And I would say that the process was very beneficial. I think a number of our partners found it very helpful to kind of see where we were going, what we were thinking. A lot of the themes were around, the classic mobility, social, and big data, and all the classic buzzwords, if you will. But they were very much applied case studies that I think they found helpful. I think we as an IT organization found it extremely valuable in just thinking through and working with our business partners to kind of just envision. And it was very much a blue sky, and we were very clear about where we thought things were near term and where we thought things were much farther out. And it served as a very effective starting point to have a better conversation, both internally and with our service providers. It wasn't like we took one specific thing out and then that turned into a project. I think really the value of it was going through the process of coming up with the material.
Yeah, is there plans to repeat that program?
There are.
Okay.
So when we started several years ago with the collection of things that had come together as Thermo Fisher Scientific, we did that. We brought in several service providers and said, how should we approach this problem? Should we go, best of breed with an integrator? Should we go a common set of tools with the service provider? How should we approach these challenges in terms of the infrastructure layer, the ERP layer, et cetera? That set the course that we've been on. During that time, we have our supplier operation reviews every month that we're measuring how we're doing. And then twice a year, we have supplier business reviews. We're beginning to think as we move into our next generation of where do we go next, that we'll start to do cross-supplier reviews, but not all together at the same time. That would be like herding the whole Noah's Ark with all the animals there. That would be crazy. We would probably say, here's a problem, and bring in 3 or 4. Not all 10. That would be scary.
Yeah, I'll comment again. I don't. It'd be like a goat rodeo for us to have all of our partners in.
Goat rodeo. It wasn't. I'm telling you, it was not that bad.
I gotta write that one down.
However, I will tell you my experience in treating partners individually is that in the company I was at previously, as I arrived, there would be a quarterly business review, and it was mainly around sort of, okay, what did the vendor sell us? How was the SLAs? And it was very tactical around buy and sell. And we changed the dialogue to really share with them our strategic plan on a biannual basis, where we said, here's 6 or 7 big problems we're trying to solve, and we'd like you to figure out where your sweet spot is to help us. And of course, the first round, they said, we can help you with all 6. And we said, wait a minute, you didn't get the message. We believe there are probably 1 or 2 that you could be really successful about. And when they finally got the drill to say, yeah, you know what, we can really be good at those 2. And then the subsequent reviews became, how are we following through on your ability to help us innovate and transform those areas? And the buy and sell took care of itself.
Good. Next question, we'll start with John on this next question. How have new technologies like cloud and SaaS and platform as a service changed your role, right, the role of the CIO, and also changed your IT services strategy?
What's cloud?
Exactly, exactly. That's where you need our help. We have an answer for that.
I don't, you know, I will be honest, I don't know that it has changed. I think that the technology landscape continues to change and evolve. From my perspective, I think whether it's cloud or software as a service or platform or mobility or social, these are all different tools, and there's unique ways to apply them and situations you can apply them in. But I think if anything, the role as the IT organization of being really trying to achieve that trusted partnership with the business and with our end customers, and coming up with solutions that are, meeting a specific need, that remains pretty much the same. There's a lot more to keep track of and to be aware of in these things. I'd say, if anything, that kind of the awareness that the business and our customers have of that probably does add a bit of a challenge, because everyone hears cloud or big data, and yeah, I want that, or I want 2 of those and 1 of those, and being able to to get back to the real discussion of what's the problem we're trying to solve, and
sure.
And then what's the best tools to solve them with.
Sure.
I consider it a fabulous opportunity, because the more that our business partners around the company want to do their own, whether through software as a service, platform, whatever, it takes work off of our plate, which is great, because then they can go do it. They know they have to kind of follow some of the standards, some of the sourcing, the contracts, those types of things. So they go off and do it. Wonderful. Then they get in trouble. And then they come running and go, oops, we didn't understand about capacity. We got this whole thing on performance problem, and now we can't back up our data. Now we've lost all this. And then they go into this yikes mode, when then you have to say, well, that's okay, calm down, we'll help you get through this thing. So it's good, because they can get out there and learn and experiment and find some great things, and then they bring us the work to help them. Like Perfect. 16 different instances of a Salesforce tool.
Yeah, I characterize it as the now what moment, right? Okay, now what? One of the things that I heard a panelist mention this morning that makes it much easier for the CIO is now to have the dialogue around the pricing of business services, right? So it's a much easier dialogue to say, well, if you're going to spin up a number of seats in this particular functionality, it's this per seat, and we don't get into a match back and forth around, hey, are you delivering value or not? So that helps a tremendous amount. I think there's a lot of challenges that we need to help our constituents with around the data integration. Ina mentioned it, and the backups, and also the integration between the platforms is also when it's not well understood until it's enabled within the enterprise.
First I'd like to thank my good friends at Gartner for first inventing the hype cycle and then putting it into performance test mode with the cloud. Give me a break. Cloud's been around since as long as the computer's been around. There's different forms now, different capabilities. But I think as IT professionals, we have a responsibility in the enterprise to proactively help people think about where it fits. And I think all the seat-back pocket writing and literature on the topic has trivialized what it is we're talking about, to the point where it's so abstracted, people don't even get what it is, including people in our own profession. At the end of the day, having cloud services does not eliminate the need for an IT team. And in fact, contrary to what maybe some of our business partners might think, it doesn't eliminate the work for the IT team. You know, while you can buy a service, as long as that service is completely isolated, there's no cost or effort internally. But when you have to start integrating things, worrying about architecture, how's it all going to fit together? Well, unless you want to live with a patchwork quilt that doesn't fit together, you've absolutely got to be proactive as an IT professional, set the objectives for the business around how to use cloud and help protect them from making mistakes which are extremely expensive and costly.
So we heard a couple different things there. One, clearly having a strategy, but also encouraging some of your business units or folks out there, your constituents, to give things a try, right? Because you may not always have the bandwidth to help them out. So what I'm hearing is a mix of proactively suggesting that they go out and try Salesforce, perhaps, versus saying, you know, you can wait 2 years, or you can go give this a try.
Right. Or some other not-to-be-named brand of something.
Sure.
Or at least helping them understand, okay, if you want to go do this, how does it fit together or not? Does it matter if it fits together? You know, going and standing up a little trial of Salesforce might work and be important, but if you have a broader strategy or a broader view of what needs to happen, it may or may not fit that. And so you kind of got to play the chess game a few moves ahead and help the business understand where that idea, which may seem good in the very short term, may or may not really fit.
And then here's the things you'll want to think about, right? You know, let us help you with the contracts. We can talk about SLAs and, you know, uptime and change cycles. And, and they say, oh, okay. And then, you know, if you can get out ahead of that to say, let me give you some tools where you can actually make a more effective decision, then you become a real partner.
Sounds like parenting, but I'm not sure our constituents listen any better.
Parenting is much easier.
I don't know. I got teenagers.
We're going to switch gears and ask a few questions that are a bit more tactical. The first is, how do you measure the value delivered by your IT service providers? And can you share an example of the value delivered by one of your service providers that's centered around a newer technology? And I don't think we've started with Ina yet.
Well, we'll start at the back end. Operationally, through your service level agreements and your operational statistics and your operation reviews, you measure all that. And you have very tight SLAs, and you're constantly arguing with them about whatever. When you're doing something new, introducing a new form function, and I do find it interesting that mobility is this big thing now. We've been doing mobile applications and mobile things for probably 15 years. I mean, it's not that new. I guess it's new in how you download apps and music and all that stuff. But anyway, it's kind of measuring that in terms of what's the productivity gains, what's the return that you expect, how much are they putting into it. Those are all things that you have to write into that agreement, that contract. Who owns the IP? You know, when you're developing something new, like a barcode or wireless technology in your manufacturing facility, you better know who owns that code. Right? Because you don't want them to walk out the door with it and then resell it to all your competition the very next day. There you've lost your competitive advantage.
Your consultants are easy to work with when it comes to contracting an IP?
No, they're pretty hard.
Yeah, and I think the IP issue is a good one. And it's a tough one because I think many companies, we have a tendency to want that. But of course, the value proposition from the service provider is the shared investment, right? So their pitch is, if I do this and you have the IP, then, you know, I've basically been a staff augmentation for you. And so I think it's finding that right balance of, are there elements in that you can apply to other providers, maybe outside of my industry, that, you know, give you leverage? You know, how unique is it, or is there some way that it got implemented for me or for my industry? And in order to have that dialogue and to have it successfully, you do have to have a pretty sophisticated partner and someone that's willing to engage in that process. That's a complex process, a lot of lawyers involved and all that kind of stuff. But if there's something of value, I think it's worth it.
Good. Anyone else?
You know, I think around value, for me, it's how willing are you really to share the risk and the challenges we face. You know, I've worked with a lot of integrators. I used to be one. I was a colleague of Barry's a long time ago. And I think, a lot of service providers talk about sharing risk and value sharing and value delivery and all that. But, at the end of the day, right, who's next in the noose? And who's really on the hook? And if it doesn't work, what happens? I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so I break it down pretty simple. And, if I work with people, I work with service providers who genuinely are on the side of the table with me, absorbing and working with me on that risk and putting skin in the game. And if you're not willing to do that, I'm not a T&M shop, and I'm not even in a model where if you say you can sort of hit a date that I'm going to give you money. We have complex, difficult things. If you want to be rewarded, we have to take risks together. And specifically around IP, I mean, for me, it's pretty straightforward. If I order a pizza and I pay for a pizza just because my neighbor wants the pizza, or just because the pizza maker would like a slice, doesn't mean he gets my pizza. If, however, it's in our best interest for him to have a piece, that's different. But I think when I look at intellectual property rights on the service provider side, I'm amazed at sometimes how creative lawyers can be around what they think their rights are. It's positively ridiculous. So I think as CIOs, we need to be smart about what we do with intellectual property and where we're allowing people to have license, even though we're paying for it, and where we say, I'm really sorry, it's nice you want that, but I paid for that pizza. You can't have it just because I paid you to make it.
I think the value dialogue also goes a long way beyond sort of the technology value that the service provider will provide. And I think I heard again a panel this morning on the shared ownership and accountability, and I think it's between the business and IT and the provider. We're just going through a pretty significant project for sales quoting, and it's been a very difficult project. I think if we to define the business outcome of having sales people spend more time in front of customers, that be the end goal, and then have sort of an actively mutual supporting dialogue with the vendor, IT, and the business, what we'll find out is that you can oftentimes just get your salespeople out in front of customers more without even enabling the technology. But if you make that goal accountable, right, then they're finding ways to even do that more than they would if they just enable the technology. So I think it's really around the overall business outcome value.
And I think, Bill, you also mentioned in there being fair, right? I mean, everybody's a capitalist. You're in it to make money, and so we all also have to be reasonable. We can't, if you do business with somebody that's losing money all the time, obviously they're not going to bring their best people to you, and they're not going to be a viable supplier. So it's, as you're working with the business, right, if they're committed to being a part of the project team and making decisions in a timely manner, you have to sign up for that together. If there's scope, you have to have tight scope control and be reasonable. Otherwise, sometimes vendors are too willing to take risks and not willing enough to hold you accountable. And I think as professionals, we have to be careful of that as well.
And you avoid the dialogue of saying, well, the software works as we described in the SOW, and we're saying, okay, that's right, but we're not spending more time in front of customers, so you didn't succeed yet.
Yeah. Next question about being a trusted advisor. You can't pick up a trade magazine without reading about how CIOs need to be more relevant to the business. We've heard the other panelists talk about it this morning. Every IT service provider wants to be your strategic partner, your strategic advisor. Do you have an inside circle of IT service providers that serve as trusted advisors, and how do they go about earning your trust? Let's come back over to Rich to start.
Well, I think becoming a trusted advisor comes from working closely with one another and getting to know one another well. So I think the suppliers that we trust the most are ones that we've worked together, shared risk and accountability. They've been accountable for delivering results, and we're fighting it together to deliver good results for the business. I think those that fail to do that, they talk a good game, they have nice, pretty slides, I just have very little time for. So I think it's really delivering results earns the right for me to want to trust you. And if you can't deliver the results, I can't spend the time. Right.
for delivering what they
The results.
set out to do. Good.
I also heard someone characterize it perfectly for me this one. It's about relationships, right? About those people you can count on. When you really need help, there can be some extenuating circumstances where you need either some additional technology or some cost containment. And if you can go to them and explain your problem in a transparent manner and have them respond transparently, right? Not always give you what you want, I think that's when they become a trusted partner.
Great. John, Raina?
Yeah, for me, it's about, have that ability. I think delivery is important, but being able to have a candid dialogue both ways and be able to, share some of the lessons learned that we've had and they've had, and that we're both aligned to the same outcome. And that's not always the case. And I would say there's a handful of partners that I feel I have that relationship, but it's still a situational based. And not in all situations do I always think that our objectives are mutually aligned. And in most cases I understand that in those exceptions, and that's fine. And just knowing that and being able to have that dialogue about where you are aligned. When you are aligned and you're going for a common goal, I think it's a lot easier, assuming they can deliver, assuming that they're trustworthy and have high integrity.
I absolutely have a series of trusted advisors, not only individual people, but also companies that I've just done business with for a long time, and they do. One element of building and establishing that relationship is when they admit when they did something wrong, or they dropped the ball, or the operations wasn't as good, or they didn't deliver on time, and then they make it right. That helps solidify that relationship almost more than we're always right, we're always right, we're always on time, we're always whatever. When they admit, we kind of dropped the ball here, what can we do to make it better?
Yeah, good. So we heard a couple interesting things. We heard about mutual goals. In some cases, we heard about understanding what's driving the behavior of your consulting, your IT services partner, right? They have careers, they have to be successful as well, so we're all in there for, to some extent, financial reasons, which leads to the last question I have before we turn it over to the audience, so hint on getting your questions ready. The last question is, how would the majority of your IT service providers rank you as a client, and what one thing could you do to improve their view of you as a client?
Bill?
Bill, I think we're on you.
So I guess I would think they think we're a good client. We never spend enough. That's always clear. If I think one of the things that we can improve is I believe we could give them more visibility into the deeper understanding of what we're really trying to accomplish. I think sometimes we're guilty of being more superficial around what we're really trying to accomplish, and I think that that marginalizes their ability to really become integrated with the solution.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think whenever the relationship is antagonistic, you're in trouble, and you need to acknowledge that this is more transactional, and it's not there's not a love connection, and you move on. I'd say our partners probably think fairly highly, but we're not perfect, and I respect those that are willing to share some of their observations that are constructive of where we can improve, and that's also kind of a litmus test of their maturity and their ability to be an effective partner.
I tell our service providers very upfront that we are very difficult to do business with. We're hard, we're slow, we worry about delta P probably more than we should, and you really have to have a good solid stomach to do work with us. When you do, and we do great work together, it's a fabulous time because we get lots of glory and lots of excitement and lots of recognition. And we're a big company in our space, and it's a great place to be with us. And honestly, some companies have said, that's not for us. And I'm like, good, then go on. There are a lot of other service providers out there. It's that honesty of understanding the elements of the relationship.
Now, Rich, before you answer it, you have an edge being in my chair for many years of what it's like to manage your consulting partner.
Client now.
So how do you rank yourself as a client, and what do we say when we go home at night?
Barry, you don't have any feedback in those
there's
notes,
none.
do you? Okay, good.
No, there's none.
Good, I can say whatever I want now. It's good. I think for us, First of all, I think our people that work with us would say we're fairly challenging. I think we know how we want to work with our service providers. We have a specific model of how we want to work around risk sharing and our contracting structure that is not for everyone. And so those firms that are used to it and understand it, know how to work within it, and we have a great relationship and we do a lot of great work. And there are some that, talk about wanting to do it, but also aren't really willing to work with us in the way that we want to work. And to them, we say, good luck, see you later, take care. We do a lot of innovative things. I think people that work with us enjoy that. We try really hard to treat our service providers like they're our employees, because in many ways they are. We develop a tighter affinity with a lot of service providers that work with us than they have to their own company, because they're spending more time with us than they are with their own company. And so we try very hard to make them feel at home, give them access to the right people, give them opportunity, and really push them to deliver on the high expectations we have for them and every other employee we have in our organization.
Great answers on that one. Thank you for being open and honest, all of you. With that, we'll open it up to the audience, and you've had ample warning, so I assume there'll be some great questions down here at the microphones. So let's not all run all at once. There we go. Please tell us your name and your question.
Sure, my name's David Dewey. I'm the CTO of New England Pension Consultants here around the corner. And earlier you talked about innovation and fostering innovation in your organizations. And I'm curious about the mechanisms you use for governing that in a way that bubbles up the good ideas so they can be executed on quickly and invested in, versus just having sort of the chaos of everything going on at the same time. Mm-hmm. So do you have mechanisms to track and percolate up the really good ideas so that they can be lifted and really leveraged and moved into the business?
I could maybe start. At BSC, we have a couple of things that we've put into place. One is the idea of innovation grants. So we use crowdsourcing, to your question, on a simple SharePoint platform to collect ideas. We do that twice a year. And then we use voting across our whole organization to rate those things. The top rated things go before my leadership team. We take a look at them and we decide which ones we're going to fund. We really use that innovative grant model as a way to trial new stage technology or new stage ideas that we think have promise either to help us deliver services better to the business or new ideas that we think could benefit the business. They've spanned all kinds of different spaces, but fundamentally we use that idea of anyone in our organization can bring an idea forward and ultimately get funding. We try to make it as simple as we can. We've also launched an app development contest to also make sure people understand that we're not just about bringing in service providers, but we have a lot of great technical people ourselves, and we want to reward them and give them a chance as well to bring ideas forward that they have and to show us their creativity and great technical skills. There it's less about funding and more about recognition. The last thing I would mention is we've done a lot around recognition quarterly and annually. Recognizing innovative ideas into our recognition program has been important for us.
I can speak to our product group. I mean, there's a definite innovation thread where employees are asked for innovation ideas. They receive funding. To Rich's point, there's big recognition on an annual basis for those ideas. There's a sort of, I would characterize it as sort of an innovation board of senior executives that are constantly going through these ideas, making sure that they're actually given the proper backing for, as you termed, the really good ideas.
Yeah, we do a couple of things. We have a similar within within my group and the business group, a small innovation board that brings ideas from the business up, where myself and the key business leads review and make some investment decisions on a quarterly basis of some things to just try and experiment. And then we also have implemented across the entire organization some collaboration technology, separate, different thread, that's geared at creating a much more open, transparent dialogue to foster a level of collaboration, creativity, and innovation across the entire enterprise.
Could I mention one more thing? You know, Jobs kind of parroted something that the chairman and founder of Sony really talked about back when the Walkman was invented, and that is a lot of times, you know, your customers don't really know a good innovative idea from a bad one because it's difficult to see it sometimes and understand how it applies. So I think one of the challenges we've seen as we get this innovative ideas and this great engine of innovation going is being able to help the business connect the dots and listening carefully for the business and understanding how that great idea that's maybe in very early stage incubation could really, like right now, could add value if we could just kind of bring it forward. And when we do that, we see with the business, a lot of times they go, wow, I had no idea that was even possible, or we might be able to spin that up quickly. That's great. You know, they're delighted by that solution that you can start talking about and bringing forward that they wouldn't have even known to ask for, or even if you had shown them the prototype, they wouldn't even necessarily understand it. So I think having that business connection and being able to connect the dots, I know it sounds a little corny, but it's really, really important as you have innovative ideas, bringing them through the pipeline. Because let's face it, we're not just doing it to do it, right? We're coming up with these ideas because we want to make some of them real. And the making them real part is getting them into the business and helping them see the value of it.
Let's go over here for a question, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Linda Pelikudas, and I want to bring us back, if I could, to the conversation you elaborated on of your trusted providers. Look at the other end of the relationship spectrum. Would you mind commenting, please, on the ways that your organizations and you individually make yourself open, invite new practitioners, new consultants, new service providers to introduce themselves to you? This seems to be a really big barrier, especially with the large number of innovations with entrepreneurial companies that could benefit larger enterprises. But there seems to be a gulf there. Would you mind commenting on that end of how do you initiate a relationship?
I'll answer that. I participate and co-lead many CIO level type of meetings and summits where we invite and have a lot of new innovative products and services and companies come. So I give my time that day to look at anybody new that I don't know, right? I don't have time in my calendar to have them come to the office for an hour and spend an hour with me, but I will definitely give them time at those types of conferences. And I try to make myself available to those 3 or 4 times a year so that we get there. But you're right, you build that small trusted team and you kind of stick with that team. You give time to those companies. About every 6 weeks I meet with representatives from those companies. It's through the outside trips that you go on and places that you visit that you see them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I do the same, you know, make sure you take a look through the showcases and spend some time understanding what's available. Also, for the route in, I find that if you know, word of mouth is always a way to get an introduction, right? So the calendar's tight, so you typically wouldn't entertain sort of new anybody above that core, but clearly, you know, word of mouth or someone making a recommendation, hey, you ought to just take a look at this, that works effectively.
Yeah, I would say that it is hard. I would tell you I'm not very open to, you know, get 50 emails or calls a day on this little place or that little place, and very, very infrequently does it break through. I think the way to start is not starting with me. I think that's sometimes the miss, which is it would be far more compelling if you built a relationship with someone on my team, tried something out, you know, kind of on the side, and then brought it to me, because then you have proven something and you have an in terms of someone that I would trust. But coming directly to me and pitching those ideas, it's not a good success rate.
The last thing I would throw in, and I think these are all very good points, is it's going to sound silly, but I have no pride, so I'll say it. Be differentiated. You know, very often I get the phone call, you know, hello, Mr. Aduki, you know, when I pick up the phone. And I say, no, it's Rich Aducci. And they say, okay, great. And then they kind of play the tape, right? And it's about how they provide great integration services, and they're a 10-person operation. Well, you know, guess what? I work with people that have 200,000 people operations and large portfolios of skills. And so you're never going to compete with that if you're competing as a broad-based services thing. So having clear differentiation and also building the relationships at the right level. You know, when I get the generic phone calls in, and almost all of them call at about 6:30 at night so they can hit my voicemail when my admin can't screen them out, right? What do? I 337 that right away, right? Because I just don't have time to kind of go through, spool through all those. So be differentiated, pick the right people to build the relationships with, and go at that. If you're a generalist, it's going to be really tough sledding because you're up against the likes of Barry, and he's got a lot of power behind him.
We hear a lot these days from our own people that the CIO is no longer the buyer, right? And I'd be interested to just hear just a quick straw poll. Do each of you feel that you make most of the decisions around which vendors you hire for key decisions, or is that a decision that you put down a level or two?
Part of the decision, but not the only. I mean, the teams. I mean, I'm going to go back to the team. They've got to deliver on it and deal with it. And so, you know, I'll have a point of view, but I'm looking for that level of buy-in too.
I think that totally depends, right? I mean, on what you're buying. In some cases, you may possess most of the vote. In some cases, you may not want to vote at all and let the team vote it. I mean, it really completely depends on the nature. If you're making a big-time strategic decision and you're and you've abdicated that, that's probably a problem. That's going to bite you later. If you are in the weeds on $50,000 buying decisions, that's probably also bad. So it's balancing it out.
We have time for two more. This gentleman was up first, so we'll start there, and we'll call it a wrap after these two questions. So please go ahead.
My name is Kevan Khawaja, and I run a BPM consulting services company. My question is that for the last 10 or 20 years in the industry, we have been talking endlessly about bridging the gap between business strategy and IT.
Yeah.
And have you, in your own companies or in other organizations, seen a classical case of the Harvard Business School business strategy, or let's say the Blue Ocean strategy, move into IT in a methodological way, as opposed to a haphazard situation that I've seen at many companies?
Well, you may be running your business for 10 or 15 years. You said we've been talking about the misalignment from business. I've been in this career for over 35 now. We talk about it all the time. Always. Business and IT are not aligned. And I would tell you, most of the time, we are more than we say we are. Mm-hmm. We just, it's something we always harp back on. We didn't understand. They didn't. We're more aligned than you think. We don't just say, oh, we're going to go implement blah, 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 just because we want to go implement that. I mean, it's got to start somewhere. What's the business problem you're trying to solve? So that, you know, whether you're following a Harvard Business School or an A3 process or whatever your strategic planning process is, it starts with business goals. What's your revenue goal, your profit goal? It starts with how you're going to get there, then what do you have to do and how you're going to enable it. Not only in IT, but in marketing and finance and human resources. All of it has to fit together.
I think also, I mean, I agree with Anna. I haven't really seen a lot of disconnect, really. Because I think for all of us, if we have a lot of disconnect between the business and ourselves, we're probably either in the wrong job or not going to be in that job for very long. So I think for us at BSC, changing the governance model and aligning that with the business and giving the business the control to drive governance was really important. But I think also you mentioned Blue Ocean strategy, and I think for a lot of CIOs, that's a big deal for us now. I think increasingly how we can add value is really stretching the field in terms of what we do and also in terms of what the business can do for their customers. So I think being innovative is going to be a lot more than just, you know, how do I use a Galaxy tab in my thing, or how do I deal with smart sensors? It's going to be a lot more about how do I look at the business model and our profound view of the business model, which actually is really good because we can see across all the functions to bring new ideas to the table that as an individual function or business, you may not see.
Yeah.
You know, I had a step back moment last quarter through our quarterly business review, because our CEO was very, very strong in his statement that the business is not aligned with IT. And of course, being the guilt-ridden person that I am, I took that to, I am not solving my business's needs. And he did not mean that at all. And in fact, over the past several years, we've made a lot of investments in IT to enable changes in the business. And what he was saying, which was very true, and we're really working on this, is we've made these IT investments, we've put new systems and technology in place, and the business guys haven't adopted them, haven't optimized them, haven't figured out how to use them to really advance their role in the business. So we as IT professionals can't always take it that business and IT is not aligned, and that's our problem.
Well,
it's
collectively. Let me just add one thing. So I just want to agree with Ina, because I think that the alignment is generally, I think both the business and IT understand what we want to do. I think a lot of this disconnect sometimes is how we're going to do that.
Correct. So is there any process? For example, the strategy part is a formal process now. The execution and launching of projects is, again, a formal process. We have PMI for project management. But what transpires actually in the translation of the strategy into IT? Is that link formal or methodological in your companies? What is that particular process that you follow?
So one person answers. We have to get one more question in.
For us, it's governance, right? We have a governance model that connects the strategy that we have to actually what we're going to execute. There's a formal model for how ideas kind of come through, how they get approved, how they get racked and stacked, how we allocate funding to what we're going to go do. That's really the model that helps connect the two and allows the business to kind of hold the keys ultimately. And I think at the end of the day, if somehow somebody concludes business or IT is not aligned, part of my job is to fix that.
One last question, please.
Yes. My name is Alexander Zeyer. I'm from the Hasso-Plattner Institute. We are working since a few years with SAP and also with MIT together to build the next generation of SAP software and try to use cutting-edge technologies to transform this to the next generation of SAP software, for example. And my question is to the audience, how to make in a huge organization, if you have most of the companies, it possible to really find out the inventions who could come an innovation and the next step and probably even a disruptive step for the company to be successful for the next generation, and also to make the people in the departments who are affected engaged about this and not have the topic, it's not invented here because it came from somebody else, and make this possible in a big organization to leverage these new things which probably come out from another place.
I'll just take a quick shot at it. I think it has to be a very compelling story, right? So I think the real key is, there's a lot of momentum in our organizations, right? And it's very difficult sometimes. It's like, it takes the Queen Mary 3 miles to get 1 degree of course correction, right? But if you have a real compelling argument, right, then there's a reason to push that rudder just a little bit harder.
I guess the last thing I would say is I think IT is a little bit more like Moneyball. If you're familiar with the book or the movie, it's about on-base percentage. It's about singles and doubles. When you start trying to, go for the home runs, that's when you strike out and miss. And this is a game of being aware, staying conscious of innovations that are going on. But there's a lot of just day-to-day delivery, ensure that the business operates and is able to meet their goals.
I think we're going to see some really exciting times over these next 4 or 5 years. If you look at the core of all of our companies, it's either some mainframe application in COBOL, or a TPF, or some SAP, or Oracle, or J.D. Edwards, or some big, huge thing that's core to your operation. And it's not going anywhere fast. It's going to be there. The really fun part is, how do we develop mobile apps that you download from an app store in like 20 seconds that allow you to do some really cool transaction in your core system. So whether it's, inventory checks or, scan to stock to generate a purchase order for an item that you need in your laboratory, whatever those apps are that come back to that core system, that's going to be kind of the exciting time that we see. Those core things aren't going away.
I would say the work you guys are doing and the work that SAP is doing to really drive innovation around technology is very impressive. I think you guys and many of their partners have done some amazing work. I think when you look at IT, if you're an IT professional and you can't get excited about what you can do every day right now, I don't know what it's going to take, but you probably are in the wrong profession. There's really great opportunity here. You think beyond the simple stuff and you get into things like some of the in-memory computing and what that can unleash in terms of information that can really make a difference for mankind and for your business. You look at how business models are changing and how they're going to rely more on skills that are in this room. It's a really, really great time to be in IT. And I think being innovative, balancing on-base percentage with also home run percentage, because you will have to hit some home runs if you're a CIO. It will not be enough to get on base reliably. You have to be able to do that. But increasingly, if you're going to be an innovative CIO and all you can do is hit a base hit, that's going to be a problem in the future because the base hits are going to be in the cloud.
Well, thank you all, panelists, Ina, John, Bill, and Rich. So I appreciate it. Great questions from the audience, so thank you all as well.